This sinking boat is part of a potential criminal investigation, with dozens of bodies believed to be trapped underneath. Passengers were heading to the regional capital on this wooden boat when it capsized. These people had relatives on board, and now they're using fishing nets to recover bodies. Survivors say the boat was carrying too many people and too much cargo, including bags of cement. Crossing lakes and rivers after nightfall is illegal in the DRC. At least 3 port agents are under arrest for allowing the boat to leave, and the owner and members of the crew are under investigation.
Let's start the bulletin now with an alert coming in on India and China's border row. The Chinese soldier who was apprehended a few days back by India has now been handed back to China. The Chinese soldier was released today at the Trishul Moldo at around 10 a.m. On January 8th, the soldier had been apprehended on the Indian side of the line of actual control in Ladakh after he transgressed across the LAC. He was taken into custody by Indian troops deployed in the area, and the Chinese soldier was apprehended from south of the Pangong Tso Lake in eastern Ladakh. India and China are still in talks regarding deployments and disengagement of troops along the various standoff points in eastern Ladakh.
News story, Washington moving to designate the Houthi movement as a foreign terror group.
I think it's very significant, but we have been expecting it also for some time now, because this is part of the maximum pressure the U.S. is trying to put on Iran and its allies before it leaves office. I think this is probably the last chance that the Trump administration has in order to do that, because we all know that Trump will be out of the White House by the 20th of this month. It's significant because it might lead to undermining any future peace efforts, because if you designate someone as a terrorist organization, you won't be able to negotiate anymore with him. So this is something that the United Nations has been very concerned about, taking into account the peace process that is going right now between under the auspices of the United Nations. Although, I mean, sometimes we are seeing that this peace process is not actually making any progress.
Navy divers point out the wreckage of Sriwijaya Flight 182 scattered on the seafloor. A major breakthrough in the search, pings picked up from the flight's 2 black boxes. The focus now on retrieving the cockpit voice and flight data recorders to determine what caused the plane to crash just 4 minutes after takeoff. Late last night, the engine from the 737-500 was lifted from the sea. Twisted pieces of metal, painted in the airline's signature red and blue, brought to the surface, along with waterlogged clothing from the 62 passengers, including 7 children, the country's president offering his prayers.
Dan seluruh masyarakat Indonesia menyampaikan,
"We will do our best to find and save them," he said. But authorities fear there are no survivors, families giving DNA samples to help the identification process. The flight's pilot has been named as 54-year-old Captain Afwan, a father of 3 and former Indonesian Air Force pilot with more than 30 years of flying experience.
Total's Mozambique operations have been halted by the recent attacks, including on New Year's Day specifically, and that many of the workers there, including South Africans and other foreigners, have been asked to leave the area, have been evacuated, and Mozambicans who work there have been told to stay at home.
Indeed, this is a sad development, not only for Mozambique, the employees, but for the entire region, and why not the world. Total is indeed telling its employees to stay at home. Those are Mozambicans, and it's evacuating its employees, most of South Africans.
The South Korea's Supreme Leader Kim Jong Un is now also the General Secretary of the ruling Workers' Party. North Korea has endorsed its leader at its ongoing 8th Congress. Kim Jong Un has now got another official new title, and this is the title that he's managed to take of his late father, Kim Jong-il, who was also referred to as the Eternal General Secretary of the party, and his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, who was also the Eternal President of North Korea. The party's ongoing Congress announced Kim's new title during the 6th-day session. It is, however, largely a symbolic appointment, as Kim Jong-un is already the party's top leader. This move is aimed at bolstering his authority amidst growing economic challenges. The Kim family has ruled North Korea with a very strong personality cult that has elevated key family members to a godlike status, where you simply cannot criticize the supreme leader. Meanwhile, the new round of negotiations to resolve a decade-long dispute over the Nile River has broken down yet again. The long-running complex dispute over the Grand Renaissance hydropower project involves several nations that are dependent on the waters of the Nile for their very existence. At the forefront of this dispute are the three nations: Egypt, Ethiopia, which is constructing the dam, and also Sudan. The latest round of talks had come 6 weeks after Sudan boycotted the negotiations, and the virtual meet was supposed to tackle regulations for filing and operating the $5 billion dam project. The 9 years of talks have witnessed reciprocal accusations between Egypt and Ethiopia, trying to impose what many say are unrealistic solutions. In the latest deadlock, however, Sudan is being blamed for proposing the African Union to mandate a solution.
Here at home to the deadly shooting rampage that started in Chicago and ended in nearby Evanston, leaving at least 3 people dead and several others wounded. The gunman apparently targeted his victims at random until he was killed in a shootout with police. Here's ABC's Elwin Lopez.
Tonight, the city of Chicago reeling after a deadly shooting spree that killed at least 3, critically injuring 4. Police say this man, 32-year-old Jason Nightingale, went on a murderous rampage that lasted 4 hours and stretched for more than 10 miles.
We have police confirming there's a person shot inside the IHOP.
Police say a woman was taken hostage by the gunman inside an IHOP. Authorities saying the victims appear to be targeted at random, including a security guard. A 15-year-old girl also fighting for her life tonight after the gunman opened fire into a car, striking her in the head.
Report of a second person shot. We're going to send a second ambulance.
Police eventually cornering Nightingale, engaging in a shootout that killed him.
The coming weeks will be the hardest yet. A stark warning from German Chancellor Angela Merkel as the country passed the 40,000 mark in the number of deaths since the start of the pandemic. The virus is accelerating across Europe, and although Germany fared better than most nations during the first wave, it's now being hit hard by the second. Sweden, which has resisted lockdown measures, relying mostly on the public following official health recommendations, is also battling a second wave. It has now enacted an emergency law allowing the government to limit the number of people in shops, businesses and public places, and is able to fine transgressors. In France, 25 departments are either under a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. nightly curfew or soon will be, as nearly 16,000 new infections were confirmed.
As officials across Canada work to vaccinate as many people as they can against COVID-19, there are new reminders that the virus is moving quickly too. Canada has detected its first case of the South African variant of COVID-19. At least 14 cases of the UK variant have been found here as well. They're no more deadly, and the vaccine will likely still offer good protection, but both variants spread more easily in the community, and that is a major cause for concern.
If you have a more transmissible virus, even if it doesn't in and of itself cause more severe disease, if you have more people infected with the virus, that's just a greater proportion of people infected, which means a greater number of hospitalizations and sadly a greater number of deaths.
What public health officials don't want are these variants to begin circulating widely. A virus that behaves differently may not be as easily controlled with current mask policies or capacity limits.
Now, I grew up in Austria. I'm very aware of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1938 by the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys. Wednesday was the day of broken glass right here in the United States. The broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. But the mob did not just shatter the windows of the Capitol. They shattered the ideals we took for granted. They did not just break down the doors of the building that housed the American democracy. They trampled the very principles on which our country was founded. President Trump sought to overturn the results of an election, and of a fair election. He sought a coup by misleading people with lies. My father and our neighbors were misled also with lies, and I know where such lies lead. President Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever.